everyone. This is ARIRANG News. It's 2 p.m. here in Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. The stories we're following at this hour. Ahead of the U.S. defense chief's visit to South Korea next week, Russia's ambassador to Korea expresses concerns over Washington's possible deployment of its missile defense battery to the Korean peninsula. A recent survey shows that nearly 30% of people think President Park Geun-hye should put inter-Korean ties at the top of her foreign policy agenda. And Korean police are planning to use traffic information posted on social networking sites. With the new system, officers could automatically be sent to accidents just after they occur. Now, with the defense chiefs of South Korea and the U.S. slated to meet next week, speculation is mounting over whether the two will officially discuss the possible deployment of a U.S. missile defense battery to South Korea. Our Connie Kim starts us off.
Will they or won't they? With around a week remaining until U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter arrives in Seoul for talks with his South Korean counterpart Han Min-gu, the elephant in the room is whether they touch upon the possible deployment to the Korean peninsula of the U.S. missile defense system called THAAD.
The U.S. government has not formally proposed talks on THAAD. If Carter suggests official discussions, it becomes a political issue. Seoul and Washington will then be pressed to make a decision.
Some observers believe a bigger issue needs to be addressed before the U.S. proposes talks about THAAD. Experts say that Seoul and Washington would have to agree on the severity of the North Korean nuclear threat in order for THAAD talks to proceed.
Budget sequestration in the U.S. meant defense spending was cut. The U.S. believes North Korea has scaled up its nuclear threat, so the Pentagon says it needs more funds. The South Korean government, on the hand, is not keen on increasing its defense budget.
Other experts think THAAD is unlikely to come up during Carter's visit.
China's reaction on the THAAD issue, very controversial. I don't think he's going to raise any controversial issues at all. Rather, he will say the U.S. commitment to the defense of South Korea.
China and Russia say THAAD threatens their national security because the system's radar has a range of up to 2,000 kilometers, meaning it would cover significant parts of their mainland territories. Sandwiched between Beijing and Washington, observers say Seoul must make its own objective decision and not be swayed by the superpowers. However, until official talks on THAAD materialize, the two countries will focus on trying to find common ground on security, military, and diplomatic issues at upcoming defense talks in Washington and Singapore. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
In the meantime, Russia has voiced its concerns once again. Moscow's ambassador to Seoul says the THAAD deployment would become a regional security threat if it becomes a reality. In an interview with Korea's Yonhap News Agency on Thursday, Alexander Timonin said the U.S. missile defense system would destabilize the entire region. The envoy also warned THAAD could spark an arms race in Northeast Asia and complicate the resolution of North Korea's nuclear issues. He called on Seoul to carefully review the system to see if it will end up having more negative than positive outcomes. U.S. President Barack Obama has issued an executive order to authorize his government to sanction foreign hackers who plan or carry out cyber attacks on the U.S. In a statement on Wednesday local time, he granted permission to impose sanctions involving diplomatic engagement, trade policy tools, and law enforcement mechanisms. Obama said cyber threats pose one of the most serious economic and national security challenges to the U.S., and the new program will help counter such malicious threats. Now, this comes after Washington imposed new sanctions on North Korea in January following a massive cyber attack on Sony Pictures. In her third year in office, President Park Geun-hye has a number of issues to resolve on the diplomatic front, including deadlocked inter-Korean ties. ARIRANG's presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun tells us which issues are most important to the Korean public.
In a recent survey of 1,000 adults conducted by local daily the 동아일보 and the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, 27% of respondents said improving inter-Korean relations should be the administration's #1 foreign policy priority. More than 80% said President Park should hold summit talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Even 3/4 of those who consider themselves to be politically conservative, often hardliners when it comes to North Korea, said an inter-Korean summit was necessary. Analysts say this reflects South Korean fatigue after 2 years of deadlock and no tangible outcome from the country's North Korea policies. Additionally, 40% of those surveyed said Seoul should lift commercial sanctions on Pyongyang. The sanctions were imposed after the North's torpedo attack on a South Korean warship in 2010. While it remains a sensitive issue, support for the lifting of sanctions jumped 10 percentage points in 5 months. Still, people thought it was necessary to maintain strong deterrence against North Korea's provocations, with 60% saying Seoul should employ the U.S. anti-ballistic missile system THAAD to counter security threats from Pyongyang. Moving down the priority list, South Koreans felt that Seoul's alliance with Washington and its economic partnership with Beijing deserved attention. As for Seoul's frosty relations with Tokyo, 2/3 of Korean people said the two sides should work to improve ties even if Japan continues to deny its past atrocities. Respondents said better relations with Japan are necessary to settle historical issues and to reduce economic fallout. 최유선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Meanwhile, President Park will meet with U.S. Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi in Seoul on Thursday. The House Minority Leader is heading up a bipartisan congressional delegation to several Asian nations. President Park is expected to ask Pelosi for understanding and cooperation from the U.S. Congress on various issues. Possible topics for discussion include pushing for a trilateral leaders summit between Korea, China, and Japan, and improving ties between Seoul and Tokyo. Diplomatic relations between the two countries have been very tense, with the Abe administration reluctant to acknowledge Japan's past wartime atrocities. Pelosi and the other 9 members of Congress will head to Japan on Friday. And no breakthrough yet in the talks on Iran's nuclear program. 2 days have passed since their self-imposed Tuesday deadline, and the 6 world powers and Iran are not able to see eye to eye on the final document. Take a listen.
That they need to exhibit political will and flexibility in order to move forward. Iran has exhibited that political will. Iran has shown its readiness to engage with dignity.
But if we are in a situation where we sense that the talks have stalled, then yes, the United States and the international community is prepared to walk away, because we've been very clear about what kinds of commitments we expect, and we've been clear about those kinds of commitments for in excess of a year.
Now, differences remain on key details, including Tehran's future atomic research and the lifting of UN sanctions, which Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, reportedly has demanded to be pulled immediately and completely. The two sides also want different documents at the end of this round of talks. Iran wants a general political statement, while the UN Security Council member countries plus Germany want to include detailed steps leading into the June 30th deadline. June is when a final agreement is to be reached. In the year 2012, for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. 6 years since breaking ground, bullet trains that slash travel time from Seoul to Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju officially began transporting passengers this morning. Our Son Jung-in has more.
President Park Geun-hye hopped on a high-speed train running on a new line stretching through Korea's southwest. The 182 kilometers of track starting from Osong will shorten travel time from Seoul to the southwestern city of Gwangju to about 90 minutes. President Park said this latest railway will help the local economy grow and spur social and cultural cooperation in the region.
호남 고속철도 건설에 따른 25조 원의 경제적 파급 효과와 함께 전북, 광주 등 지역별 창조경제 혁신 센터를 중심으로 활발한 인적 교류와 기업 이전을 촉진하게 될 것입니다.
Since operations began in 2004, Korea's bullet train, the KTX, has only been able to travel at half its speed in the southwestern region because tracks were unfit for a high-speed locomotive. Now only 3 hours away from the Incheon International Airport, President Park said Gwangju could develop into a global city along the west coast. In line with this, plans to increase KTX services from Incheon Airport to Gwangju during its hosting of the 2015 Summer Universiade in July were also announced. There are also expectations that the high-speed railroad will promote advanced rail technology around the world. In fact, joining President Park on Wednesday's test ride was a visiting Malaysian transport official. Both Malaysia and Singapore have shown interest in Korea's rail technology and plan to place an order later this year for a $22 billion high-speed railway project to link their countries. The second phase of Korea's high-speed rail project connecting Gwangju to the southern city of Mokpo, meanwhile, remains in limbo as the finance and transport ministries differ in the route. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Korea's exports are losing steam as the country's traditional growth engine. The contribution of outbound shipments to growth fell to a 5-year low last year due to sluggish demand abroad and falling global oil prices. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The Bank of Korea data shows that just 1.5 percentage points from the country's 3.3% growth last year came from exports of goods and services. That equals a contribution to growth rate of around 45%, the lowest reading since 2009, right after the global financial crisis. Back then, exports actually dragged down overall growth. The contribution rate shot up to over 200% in 2011 from 92% a year earlier, but has been on a downward trend since then. The drop is creating concern about exports driving growth as well as the overall pace of recovery as demand at home also remains fragile. Korea's exports dropped for the third straight month in March, with the monthly growth figure for last month logging the biggest slump in over 2 years. The government blames the fall in exports on the drop in international oil costs, which are keeping prices low for petrochemical products, the country's major exporting item. But if oil and petrochemical products are not counted, outbound shipments rose a mere 0.2% in March from the previous year due to sluggish demand from Europe and China. The government says it will devise short-term measures like strengthening the competitive edge of local small and mid-sized exporters in order to tackle falling exports. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
More and more foreign customers are becoming interested in fashion and cosmetic products on Korean online shopping malls. And to get this trend going, the government is pushing to simplify the purchasing steps for international buyers. Our Song Ji-sun has this report.
Boosting foreign online sales of popular Korean items could give domestic manufacturers a big lift as they struggle in the face of slowing domestic demand. For example, Korean online shopping mall OKDGG.com reported that they carried 1 million items last year, tripling the numbers from 2013. Sales also escalated twofold to $8 million. The most popular goods were Korean fashion items like accessories and clothing, followed by cosmetics. Currently, foreign direct online purchases amount to less than half of Korea's online direct purchase total of $1 billion, but the government sees big potential in this export channel and wants to encourage overseas customers.
액티브 X와 같은 이런 낡은 규제에 안주한 결과 국내 소비자의 해외 직구는 폭발적으로 느는데 해외 소비자의 국내 역직구는 걸음마 수준입니다. 외국만큼 쉽게 결제할 수 있도록 규제를 완화해서 역직구가 활성화되면 이것도 수출 못지않은 효과를 거둘 수 있을 것입니다.
Many Korean websites require ActiveX to make online transactions. The security program only works on Microsoft's Internet Explorer web browser, meaning that customers using other platforms cannot shop on Korean sites. By 2017, the government's aim to make 90% of the top 100 private websites ActiveX-free. In its place, they're promoting HTML5, which operates on all platforms. Analysts also point out the need to set up websites in various languages, as most of them only are currently operating in English, Chinese, and Japanese. 송지선, ARIRANG News.
The chairman of Korea's largest cosmetic maker, Amore Pacific Group, has become the country's second richest man in stock value. In the Bloomberg Billionaire Index released on Thursday, Seo Kyung-bae took the spot from vice chairman of tech giant Samsung Electronics, Lee Jae-yong. Seo's stocks were valued at $8 billion as of this past Tuesday, while E's stocks stood at $7.5 billion. Now, the change is due to the sharp rise of Amore Pacific's stocks this year. They grew nearly 40% between January and March. E's father and Samsung chairman Lee Geun-hye topped the country's billionaire list with his stocks valuing at $12.8 billion. Korean police have unveiled their plans to make the roads safer and more stress-free for drivers and pedestrians. They are in the process of developing a system which will use traffic information posted on social media like Twitter and Facebook. Our Shin Se-min has the story.
Millions more eyes will be on Korea's busy roads from later this year under a new police program. The National Police Agency says its 2015 Traffic Safety Guide will be implemented in the second half of the year, and it'll have more of the focus on public participation. Under the new scheme, drivers will be able to report car accidents or heavily congested roads to the police via Twitter or Facebook. Once shared, the new program will automatically send notifications to drivers or dispatch officers to the scene if necessary. It'll also relay useful info to drivers using its so-called Urban Traffic Information System. Citizens will also be able to record and report traffic violations to the police instantly through a free mobile application. Mondays and Fridays will be designated Traffic Order Enforcement Days. On these days in particular, the police will keep an extra close eye on and crack down on drivers violating traffic signals, tailgating, and other traffic-related offenses through cameras located at crossroads. The number of automated cameras near so-called school zones will be expanded to 300 by 2017. Through the new measures, the National Police Agency says it hopes to cut down on road traffic accidents and free up traffic flow in Korea's major cities. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Colors and emotions are often related for many people, and for the late American artist Mark Rothko, colors were a chance to share his many feelings. Our Im Hyun-hee joins us this afternoon with more information. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon. So Rothko is considered the most important post-war American artist. Now, he set off waves in the global art community with his color blocking works, and they've brought dozens of his original works to Korea. Have a look.
Within this canvas, this window into the soul, what do you see? Mark Rothko saw emotions. He saw humanity. He saw a lot more than meets most eyes. As one of the most famous post-war artists, Rothko gained worldwide fame for his abstract expressionist style, his signature look that brought about a new type of art, an entirely new art experience. Rothko wanted to share his emotions with his audience, but not in the way his predecessors had. He created a style all his own.
There are two issues with the history of art. Realism portrays what the artist sees, and expressionism is used by artists to show their emotions. But Rothko was an abstract expressionist. He showed his emotions on the canvas with very little resemblance to reality. But even that doesn't justly describe him. If there's too much of oneself in the work, it's hard to understand for others. Rothko wanted to express, but also share his emotions and feelings with others.
The beginning of Rothko's career didn't look much different from any other artist of the era. He was largely influenced by other movements within the art realm, such as surrealism and expressionism. Early works contained scenes from society, and actual people as well. But as Rothko developed his style, his career matured, and a distinct style began to take shape. Figures and lines began disappearing, and colors and large shapes became more prominent. But as the paintings became less visually crowded, they became more emotionally charged, conveying Rothko's recurring thoughts about life. And towards the end of his career, overwhelmingly about death.
Within any painting, the lines and logistics must be considered, and colors are used to carry emotions. Rothko committed suicide in the 70s, but right before that, he made big wall murals with dark colors, and as a result, he had a breakdown. If you're not careful about looking at those particular wall murals, you could get very depressed. After drawing these, he had an emotional collapse, but this red painting was sort of a chance to revive himself. And while it seems brighter, it looks like the result of a deadly, bloody accident. In a way, this painting can be considered a failed effort.
The hours and hours it took Rothko to paint each piece was the amount of time he felt one needed to observe and fully understand his paintings. A quick glance doesn't reap the same experience as one that looks, reads, and feels a Rothko painting.
So you were telling me earlier that the exhibition organizers were able to bring his some of his most important works to Seoul this time.
Right. You know, actually, I think they were very surprised when so all these works are housed at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., National Gallery of Art, and I think they were very surprised when they sent over the red painting. It's technically called Untitled, but the one you saw in the report, that was his last painting. That's considered one of Rothko's most important works, and not only because of its timing, it came at the very end of his career, but also because of the meaning, because this was really where Rothko wanted to sort of pull himself out of the depression that he was facing. So a lot of meaning for both the artist and for his career and his legacy.
Okay, and there's a certain way you should enjoy his works, you say?
Right, so I was told when you go to the exhibition that you want to soak in all of the work and spend a lot of time, so you don't just kind of skip through the whole entire gallery, but you want to sit with each work and kind of spend time. And actually, Rothko said that he wants people to look at his work almost as long as it took him to paint it. So, you know, it's more than just 15 minutes. And so they actually set up benches throughout the gallery so you can sit there, take time, and really kind of ponder about it. So that's when he said you feel the full extent of all the emotions that he put in.
All right, that's a very useful tip to have. I used to look at Rothko's work and kind of wonder and tilt my head, but now I think I have a better understanding, so I'll definitely use that tip. All right, thank you very much, Geun-hye, for giving us this detailed report today.
You're always welcome.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Our mornings are still a bit chilly, but the mercury rises very quickly lately, and our temperatures now are reaching into the 20s during the day. We also have nice sunny skies with us right now, which might make you doubt the rainy forecast, but there are heavy clouds coming in from the west, bringing some rain across the nation later this afternoon, and some regions may even see thunder and lightning. Now, the rain will last until tomorrow morning. Most regions, including Seoul, will get between 10 to 40 millimeters, and the upper regions of Gangwon-do will see up to 60. Now, with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for today. So it will peak up to 20 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will top to 22 and 17 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju gets up to 24, Dokdo hits 12, while Mangkungang hits 11 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Michelle, for that. That's the end of this edition of our newscast. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. We'll be back with more at 4 p.m. Korea time.